he'll when people say I consented to it, it's like I consented to aspects of what was going on. I didn't consent to the things I didn't consent to, obviously. Like the
Right.
reason I went along with a lot of the things he told me to do and say was because he both promised to help me and then also threatened to hurt me at the same time. So he would be like, in order for me to get out of this, because he said it was some sort of game that people do on the Mr. Girl server, like, and I've been told this is like a real thing by other people, like even in Atlas Politics, some random girl I didn't know was like, yeah, I've heard of this. So basically what happens is like you join that server and then like someone like swarms the girls until one person decides it's like their girl, and then they just like harass her and like bully her, like, try to get her to do like embarrassing shit or like do sex work for them, and then like the guys will like manage them and take a portion of their money, um
Um,
or like
that
promise to
sounds like
get
sex
them things, and they'll
trafficking.
get them things that are from like AliExpress or like Temu, and then be like, oh, I bought you these like $60 boots, the boots maybe cost like $20, like, you know what I mean, to just like falsify
Yeah.
this thing. And so he was like, yeah, do you want to go to restaurants, do you want me to buy you clothes and like get you stuff? And I'm like, yeah, okay. And he's like, okay, well, you need to, he would tell me like not to give out my personal information, but then he'd have me in the politics server telling people to say what my address is, or telling me to give away my code for my Uber, because it says like, never give this code away, because if you give that code away, someone can like order an Uber for you. Like my boyfriend's done it before, like, and it's like
Right.
that's helpful, but they're trying to do it so that people can send you places that like you don't want to go, or get you like stranded places, um tell people you're like mentally ill, because they want you to say things in the Uber cars, because a lot of the Uber drivers are live streaming, so they want to be like, oh, that's my girl, and like have you doing shit all over town, and they call it like the Grand Theft Auto girlfriend like role play.
Do, may I
So
have permission to
go ahead, yeah.
so it sounds like you were almost a victim of sex trafficking.
That's essentially, yes, what was going on. And um I've also been told it's called like a dolphin scam. Like typically this is like something like TikTokers and like children fall victim to, because they like don't know any better, and he saw me as like a perfect victim because I'm autistic. And he had
Mhm.
been my friend for over a year, so I never believed he was going to intentionally hurt me. I didn't think he was even capable of doing that. And he kind of banks on the fact that people do not believe that he's capable of it. And then he plays dumb when he's confronted about it. Like there were parts of this experience where he said, go tell people what I'm doing to you, and I would tell people and show people like screenshots or recordings of him being abusive to me, and they just either didn't look at them or didn't believe me, because he would have the share screen on, and he'd be like showing people like pictures of me naked, or like screenshots of me, or videos of me like exposed and like explicit shit, and then people would be like, oh, don't click on the stream, it's just her like, half naked or some shit. And at a certain point, he put on he put some sort of Chrome extension on my computer so that he could remotely control it. I don't know how. But I had to wipe all of my shit to get it off, because when I would try to do shit like shut down my computer or like close the window, like he could just take control of it. So all I could do is like shut my laptop and basically wait for him to fall asleep or go do something else for me to be able to have access to my computer again. One of my computers he broke, like he brought me to a group chat and they deleted System 32 off of my computer. And he told me he would just fix it afterwards, because like once we do this, so the game will be over, people will leave us both alone, we'll both get out together.
You
So
can't fix some 32 deletion.
right. So I have one computer I was gonna take to a repair shop, and then they're like, "Oh, if you take it to the repair shop, we're gonna put child porn on your devices. We're gonna call the cops on you." And they had me recorded saying that I was attracted to my stepson because I was doing roleplay with Saxon, where he was pretending to be my stepson. Like, he would ask me a bunch of questions, like if I was like okay with having sex with people like certain ages, like 22. And then he'd be like, "Well, your stepson's only 17. What's the difference? Would you have sex with me if I were your stepson?" And I would be like, "Oh, this is what he wants. Like, this is like part of the play." So that's how he would get me to say things that I wasn't actually okay with, because he'd like lead me on to thinking it was like some sort of role play. And then I'd go into a public chat and he'd be like, "Tell everyone how you're attracted to your stepson, like tell everyone you're gonna have sex with your stepson," and I would just do it. Because I thought he was protecting me. I thought he was gonna tell people it was like a role play. I thought there was gonna be some sort of like relief where he told people what he was doing. So then we like he would do that sometimes. Like he'd tell people that he was controlling me and having me do stuff. And then he'd do like a Q&A about it in certain places. But then there are also these other times he'd be like, "I don't know what she's talking about," and he would honestly pretend that because of his metabolic disorder that he forgot, that he didn't know what I was talking about, or he'd say he forgets stuff a lot, or he dissociates. And he would put me through so much trauma I'd actually dissociate. I already dissociate because I have PTSD.
Mhm.
And like he would say things to me like, "Can you take your medicine right now?" So that I'd be all fucked up. And then he'd put me in chats after he told me that's not what we were doing. We were just hanging out. And he'd be like, "Talk about a time you were disgusted by a disabled person." And I was like, "I can't. I don't have one." And then he's like, "Well, make something up." So I'd make something up. And then people were like, "Well, that's fucked up of you to say." And I'm just like, "Yeah, well, Saxon made me say it." And then they get mad at me and tell me to stop blaming Saxon. So when it comes to how he abused me, I know it was part of this like Mr. Girl model, but when it comes to how he abused the other girls, I don't really know what happened. Because I know I'm not the only person he did this to. He's been blocked from several like other servers because he does shit like this, like looks for new victims. And I was told after I like stopped contacting him that he went like ape shit about it and went on like a smear campaign and told people I was just crazy, but like that's what he was doing the whole time anyway.
Right.
And then other people would ask me like, "Oh, is he with you right now? Like, can he hear us?" And I'd say no because I was instructed to say no. If I said yes, they'd be like, "Come back without Saxon," and then he would just like yell at me and post my nudes in other servers and do things that I told him not to do. And he had a screenshot of my stepson's phone number. So he threatened to call my stepson, he threatened to call my ex, he threatened to call my family, and I'm not sure if he did or not. I'm actually thinking some people called my mom, but my mom doesn't have contact with me, so I don't know. I don't really care. Like, she's
Mhm.
in her own fucking world right now. She's in like an abusive relationship and doing all this other stupid shit, so I don't know. Like, and people are like, "Oh, she has her family, she has people she can rely on, so we're not gonna help her." And I'm like, "No, I don't. My mom's an alcoholic who is drinking in an abusive relationship. My grandmother is dying of fucking like kidney disease. I do not have someone who can help me." And people would just say I was
Um,
making it up because I would just go back to Saxon because like me and my boyfriend broke up at the time, so I was like, I don't have anybody. And we broke up because
mhm.
people kept calling me and telling me he was cheating on me, and some of them claimed to be the women that he was like cheating on me with. And then I found out he would just pay them to say that. And some of them told me, and I was like, "How much did he pay you to say that?" And they're like, "He gave me $25." And I was like, "He gave you $25 to like fucking say something to hurt me when he won't even give me $25, but he claims to be helping me?" Like telling me he's gonna give me gift cards, telling me he's gonna give me stuff. I just have to like do shit. And then he'd be like, "Well, you just don't know how to receive. You don't say thank you. If you just said thank you, I could give it to you." And like he would like Photoshop me onto people or like Photoshop my pictures to make me look worse and then show them to me or like post them places and then people would be like, "Why are you catfishing people?" Cuz I don't edit my pictures. But he'd like edit my pictures and then show them to people and tell people I was editing my pictures and like do it just to hurt me cuz like he knows I have an eating disorder and then he would tell me like no one thinks you're beautiful, like everyone thinks you're ugly, you just have to deal with it. At least I think you're beautiful. Like why don't you care about me? Like I put so much into you, like you don't do anything. Like you know what I mean? Like just abuse, like just emotional and narcissistic abuse. And like
Well, he sounds like a sociopath for one. And the only reason I know that is because I'm one, but I'm not nearly that fucked up. um,
right. So a lot of the stuff that he made me say like it was like not from the hypnotism, it was from the blackmail.
mhm.
Because he had all this stuff he could hurt me with. So he was like, say this or say something like it or make something up. Or he'd sometimes tell me exactly what to say because it was something other people said. And he'd want me to say it in front of them to create a reaction or like start drama.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So, like, it's like if you did something and I went into a room and started talking about it as if I had done it. Because, like,
Yeah.
my original therapeutic process, like it sounds fucked, but I would get high and go into discords and talk about shit my mom did to me in the first person and pretend I was my mom to have people get pissed off about it because I didn't feel like anyone was upset that my mom was like abusive and neglectful to me. And I just wanted there to be a reaction. So I told him I had done that. It's not like I was going to keep doing it, but he was like, "Oh, that's really smart. Like you're really special. Like you can work with me. We can stream together." And I felt really special cuz he doesn't stream with people, but like ever since I stopped contacting him, he's been on a bunch of live streams. Like he's been on the Tomfoolery show and he's like people are saying lies about me and all this other shit and it's literally just like the victims of his abuse that are talking about him doing it. And everyone keeps
Um,
asking me for proof and I'm like, how am I supposed to give you proof? Like when I had recordings of him doing stuff, I gave them to the police and then I fucking got rid of them because I don't want to have to deal with it and it's like stuff that's hours long and I don't have a place to just
you don't,
store it. So it's like I'm between a
you don't,
rock and a hard place because if I store it somewhere, people say I'm blackmailing him. He harasses me over it. He says he didn't consent to my recordings. Like, he threatens me with it. So I just
may I
want to know what
ask,
way is up.
you don't, I'm sorry, may I ask, you don't have to answer this, what state do you live in?
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire. Okay, continue.
So it's a
Um,
one-party state, but we were on Discord, so
yeah.
there's no consent or non-consent when it comes to like phone calls because I didn't have a phone call with him, but he was trying to get me to call him on the phone. So I think that's why, because he
Oh,
didn't want me recording him anymore.
mm,
But like,
um,
if I had showed people the recordings, it didn't matter anyway, because they'd either yell at me and tell me it was my fault, or protect him. Like I was one of the only people who had videos of his face like without a filter, because he streams sometimes. He shows like a filter over it with like all this red and orange and shit, and makes it really
mhm.
grainy, and he only shows part of his face. So I was the only one who had like a video of his face, and people were like, "Oh, that's fake glasses. That's a fake beard. That's just a wig." Like to try to protect his identity, because they all just stick up for each other because they're all doing it.
Yeah, because they are a whole bunch of sex traffickers. Yeah.
One of
Um,
them went to jail. His name was Dabber because he was doing this with a child.
First off, I'm glad you're safe. I understand that you're going through a lot, but I am glad that you're in a safe place, and I am glad that you're in a more stable position. Um, I've been in and around like the whole hypno kink BDSM community since I turned 18 back in 2019. I'm 22 years old now, and it's like You know, I've heard stories of this shit happening, and I know that it does happen, but you know, I'm doing my best to make sure that it doesn't. And I'm truly sorry
It
that
is
all of this did
horrible.
happen to.
Not because people were trying to tell me like he would put me under hypnosis to like prove I got sexually abused, and I just remember like being left there afterward, and people would just leave me in the Discord and like come back and tell me to get out, and I wouldn't be able to move my arms. Like I would literally be stuck like that until I passed out and woke up because no one would take me out of the induction. Like I wouldn't be able to move my arms. He'd sometimes have it so I couldn't move my arms and then take me out of trance, and then I just wouldn't be able to use like my left or right arm or something, or both my arms sometimes. Or I could like barely use them until like, you know, he would say certain trigger words. He could say certain trigger words to me and make me have to go to the bathroom. Like, you know what I mean? Like he would literally be like, if you have to pee, you have to ask me. Or like, if I say this word, it makes you have to go to the bathroom. If I say this word, like it makes you drop something. He would keep saying it to me while my phone was in my hand, so I wouldn't be able to report or call a mod into the room. Like, 'cause I would just drop my phone. I would just drop everything.
Um, all right.
It just pisses me off. Everyone
You
says
doing
like, "Oh,
okay?
it doesn't work. It was fake or something." I'm like, "No, it wasn't fake." Like, he would have me tell people it was fake because he'd be like, "If you don't tell people it's fake, I'm gonna call your stepson or I'm gonna call your ex-boyfriend." But like, it wasn't actually fake. I didn't know what to do. And then people told me to report it to
Hmm.
the FBI, and I was like, "I can't report it to the FBI, or I don't know if you're just doing that to
The
get me in
FBI ain't
trouble."
gonna do shit about that.
I didn't know if they were doing
They
it to get
don't.
me in trouble either. Like, I thought they were trying to get me to falsify a report so that I would get in trouble because it was
Right.
stuff I couldn't prove, so I didn't know what the fuck to do about it. And then Saxon was like,
Well,
"It's okay, we're gonna catch a pedophile or some shit." And I think he might have been talking about the guy who did go to jail, but I don't think it was to help anyone. I think it was to get people off of his tail because he was doing it too.
I mean, the only thing that he was going to help was himself off.
Yeah. And
Um,
he literally said that when he started with me. He's like, "You can help me get out of a situation with these people," because like I had a friend who called them Discord sadist and just was like, "Don't talk to those people, don't fuck around with them," but he's also friends with them. It's the same thing. I think that was what people meant by like you get a girl, because he had me and we were friends for a long time, and he would push these boundaries with me. Like I would be like drinking with him, and if I threw up, he would start jacking off because that was like his fetish. And I remember telling
ew.
him not to do that like on three separate occasions. I shouldn't have to tell someone not to jerk off when I don't want them to. And then he would just be like, "Oh, well, I'm not attracted to you anyway." And it's like, "Well, then why the fuck are you
Well,
doing
then why
it?
the
Like,
fuck
why do
are
you
you
keep
jerking
doing that?"
off?
Right, yeah. Like, he'd have these weird discussions with me about it where it's like I thought I was just talking to him and helping him out with his ex, and like he was actually just like psychoanalyzing me and manipulating me after the fact.
I'm pretty sure his ex dumped him because people that act like this aren't able to act differently around other people, if that makes sense.
It's true.
Um,
Like, he literally gave her a list of like physical traits he didn't like about her, like including like the length of her chin. So, yeah.
That's just like
he
a red flag
sounds like an
immediately
okay, so
from that.
he's an incel.
Yeah, for real.
Right.
Who does that shit, bro?
Well, that's what people keep telling me is like this is like
That's
the
like that.
incel
That
community. This is like the black pill shit. And I was just like, well, they all keep talking about getting laid and having girlfriends, so it's not incels. And they're like, well, no, they're like that's not just for people who don't have sex. It's like a whole way of behaving toward women. You know, it's a whole way of like interacting with people. It's not just like
It's
masculine stuff and
fetishization
not.
and sexualization, and it's like the whole objectification of woman as like property,
Right. Like that's why they keep
and
trying to
it's
get
like
women to go on this like Mr. Girl hotline show because they want to humiliate the women and basically just tell them everything that they've gone through as far as abuse goes is their fault. As people keep going on that show
ugh,
trying to talk about their experience with like abuse or rape, and he just tells them it's their fault or that they wanted it. Saxon told me it was meant to be a front for like the domestic violence hotline, and I do not believe that. I don't see why the hell that would
I
be.
no.
They would troll me with domestic violence things. Like they'd be like, "Oh, you can get into a shelter. Just call this number. You're making it up. Like you're not being abused." And I'm just like,
This kind
I
of
can call this shelter and they can tell me that they're full. Like you realize that, right? Like COVID has made a lot of these places like unable to house people, and they'll
the
just make
shit
it up and they'll be like, there is no COVID. Like you're not telling the truth. You must not be being abused.
the shit that they're talking about sounds a lot like are you familiar with Dr. Phil?
Yeah, that's also
It's
another
kind
thing
of
they keep
like,
saying.
yeah, we'll bring you we'll bring you onto this like this whole like thing, right? And you know, you can talk about your issues and you'll get help for it, you know. You'll get someone who knows what they're talking about to help you. But at the end of the day, the whole point of it is for people to
Exploit each other.
laugh at your situation.
Right. So here's the thing,
Yeah.
like they actually told me that like part of this was meant to bully me into live streaming so that I could be considered a public figure and then they could say whatever they wanted about me because I wouldn't have the right to privacy
Mm,
when it came to certain aspects, which they've done to multiple women. One of the women, her name's Lab, and she's been bullying me. She got like really upset that I said something about her, and it wasn't even like really about her. It's just she went on the fucking show with Mr. Girl, and I was criticizing some of the things that she said. Like she said that she was doing like illegal Hooters waitressing when she was 17, and I said I don't think that that's true because I don't think that your mother who got you that job would risk her friend's management and restaurant because it's a franchise, like her friend owned it, for that to happen because you could legally be bussing tables at 17. All she would have to do is wait less than a year for you to turn 18 and then you could be a waitress. So I think you are exaggerating. And she chose to go after me so hard that I got harassment everywhere I went. And this is part of what Saxon was supposed to be helping me with. And then he said he wouldn't stop because I didn't quote unquote forgive her. And I'm like, well, why would I forgive someone who is literally just abusing me? Like the last time I saw Lab anywhere, she goes by the name Femoid now, and maybe she changed it again, I'm not sure. But she literally just said,
that
"You're
name
fat and
sounds
your
so
boyfriend
familiar.
sucks." That's all she said to me was, "You're fat and your boyfriend sucks."
Hmm.
So like, she knows I have an eating disorder, and she knows I have like I'm not even positive if it's PCOS or endometriosis because I don't have insurance to be able to deal with it. But like, I have some sort of
Yeah.
severe problem, so they were taking like screenshots of me when I didn't look good and just like throwing it in my face and telling me I
So
was catfishing people. And apparently, she uses like some sort of body filter and like just lies to people about how she looks, but it's okay. So I was just kind of like, why is it okay when you do it? But like, if I'm just having like these body variations, they'd be like, oh, you're making that up. And I'm just like, okay, are like
right.
20,000 women making it up? Is like 1 in 10 women making it up? Because this is literally a common problem. They're like, well, you lie about everything. You know, it just created this image of me where it's like, oh, she's just some liar. She's just crazy. She's got like a personality disorder. Like, you know, just I got diagnosed with PTSD right after this happened, and even my doctor said like they know this is happening because this type of thing is happening on Discord a lot, and it's happening as a result of Omegle also a lot, which they shut down
Yeah.
because that's how children were getting this to happen to them, by making friends online. So it's happened to less women my age, but it still happens, especially to autistic women. And like this guy gained my trust over like a year and a half of time. Like I'd known him as long as I'd known my boyfriend. It's not like some nobody. He used to call me on a regular basis when I was suffering from like a lot of nausea and just like talk to me. Like I thought he was just a really nice person who was getting bullied online like I was, and like, I was just like, hey, this is why I don't go to these types of servers. And then he would just be like, okay, well, go with me and like we'll have a good time together. And then he would just set me up to be bullied by people and like make a display of it. It sucks too. He's friends with someone who's doing this sort of grooming shit in Vegan World, the server I was
Mhm.
telling you about earlier. And I have no doubts that they communicate with each other about what happened. And instead of people believing me about this, even when there's evidence, they're just like, no, like that's not evidence. You need to post evidence. Like you'll post screenshots of stuff happening, and people will be like, okay, I'll take care of it. And then they'll just ask you to post it again and won't let you talk about it. It's like to keep you hushed, essentially. So like this is just constant, and then everyone's like, oh, the police don't do anything, and I'm just like, well, at least if you tell the police, it's on record. Like I called the police and
The
I
thing
spoke
that
to a
you could
detective about
do.
it, and he said there's nothing you can tell me that I don't already know, but at least that made me feel like someone knew about it and was doing anything about it. Like, I didn't know before if anyone would do anything.
Right. So
He told me where to report it at least.
I know
But yeah,
I
I
know
was
you
really
want to put all
traumatized
of
about
this
it.
behind you.
What?
Yeah. I know you want to put all of this behind you, and I fully agree with that. But if there's ever a chance you want to try and actually do something against the people that hurt you and did this, if the police departments don't do anything, find your state district or find your state's district attorney. Um, they are responsible for investigating corrupt police departments. And if the police department is not taking your claim seriously or they're not doing anything about it despite actionable evidence to do so, you can report them for corruption to your state's DA
This
and
gets
they
weird.
will, yeah.
I mean, I did ask them specifically. I asked the detective if I had to report it because I only sort of knew what was going on and didn't know what to say, and I was just having a lot of trouble like putting my ideas on paper and shit. And he was like, I've been doing this for 29
Mhm.
years. Like, you don't have to worry. Like, just, you can't tell me anything that I don't already know. And because this dude was so involved, he literally called the detective before I did. Like, he told me to call this specific person, which is fucked up.
Wait, so the detective was in on it?
Not in on it, but like the guy who was like harassing me, Saxon, he told me to call that detective. He told me that he called and spoke to him. Like after he was done harassing me.
Oh,
I don't even know what he said. He told me that he just told him that I was scared and that I didn't know what to do. And I was like, what the fuck? So when I called um the police, they were like, how did you know to speak to this detective? And I was like, because he told me to call this person. And they were like, what the fuck? So I talked to the cops. I
yeah,
talked to
he's dumb.
he's, I think, intentionally trying to get caught at a certain point, because he literally would say, like, I don't know why I'm hurting you. I don't want to hurt you. I love you. Like, shit like that. It was fucking disturbing, and I was like, okay, well, I have no
Um,
one with me now because you've isolated me completely, so he was all I had. So we continued to have this, like, friendship relationship, like, dating fucking thing going on, which was just horrible and traumatizing because I didn't have anyone to talk to. I just wanted
mhm.
I just wanted to, like, fucking kill myself, and he would keep trying to convince me to kill myself on camera. Like, he would tell me we were just together, just alone, and then he would start live streaming me, like, when I took, like, fucking pills or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just a lot of different things. He'd be like,
Mhm.
just take more, and I'd be like, I can't take more. I'm so high, I can't get up. And
And
everyone
obviously, you
they
know,
just said it was my fault because I
he
was
he
autistic.
couldn't.
I'm like, I'm being fucking blackmailed. I don't know what to do. It has nothing to do with fucking autism. Like, that's just could happen to anyone because I don't want this to happen to my fucking son, so I'm not gonna entice the guy to go harass my stepson or my other family members because my fucking stepson's dad has schizophrenia, so I didn't want him to get harassed for it either because he could fucking actually. Yeah, like, I have more faculties than he does. What the fuck? What is he supposed to do?
Mhm.
And on top of that, like, the whole fucking thing I went into the Mr. Girl Discord over was ironically like a corrupt therapist like telling someone to take mushrooms and then that person killed themselves. Like, I don't know if you know who Dr. K is, but that was something that was live streamed. So I went into that Discord because I had seen a video about it and I was like, oh yeah, at least this guy understands like mushrooms aren't the answer to like psychological problems. Like, no one should be suggesting that as a therapy tool. And then, because he was saying like do it
Wait,
instead of
wait, wait,
therapy.
wait, wait, wait. The fucking the healthy gamer dude.
Yes.
So this dude suggested that this guy take shrooms, and that guy killed himself.
Yeah, he did.
Oh.
A guy named Rectful. So anyway, what happened was my ex told me he was gonna take a bunch of mushrooms and he started saying a bunch of stuff that the healthy gamer streamer was saying. And he told me that
Mhm.
a doctor told him this information. And I was like, who told you this information at the hospital? And he said, Brian. And then Saxon told me his name was Brian. So I started to be confused. I was like, dude, is this like the same fucking guy who's talking to my ex and then like harassing me after the fact? And I have no idea. I literally don't know. But I think what happened was my ex like lied to me because he did go to the hospital because he drank so much he gave himself a seizure after I left because we left because he was drinking and not telling me and he was off his meds. So I went back to my grandmother's house. So I was like, get yourself on meds, then we'll talk about it. And he told me he was going to do that. And then he told me he went to the hospital. He decided not to take his meds because the doctor at the hospital told him he could take mushrooms instead of doing therapy. And I was like, okay. And I got as much information as I could from him. And then I called the hospital and called his parents. And I was like, what the fuck? This is about to be a disaster. And then since that, he's been to the hospital twice because he's taken mushrooms and gone insane. To my knowledge, it could be even more than that. But like, I don't have contact with him anymore. I just decided to leave all that shit in the past because I literally physically and mentally can't handle it on top of everything else I have to do. So fucking I started being on the Mr. Girl Discord because I had seen that content. And then I found out he's the guy who did the cuties review, like that guy who did the cuties review and said the fucking 11-year-olds were hot. I
Mhm.
didn't realize that was even the same guy. Like, he just changed his image and fucking buried it essentially with other content, and then it got taken down. Some people have re-uploaded it, but it's like, it's fucked. So I would literally be talking in his Discord about like the cuties review, and I was like, hey, do you know there was a guy who actually like did that review and said that the fucking 11-year-olds were hot and people thought I was being funny? I just didn't fucking realize it was the same guy because it's hard for me to recognize people.
Mhm.
Fucking, I don't know if I told you this specifically, but I have a brain tumor, so there's certain things where it's like when they're showing me like edited photos or edited videos or like audio that's used, they use AI instead of the actual person. Sometimes I can't tell. So they would be trolling me with shit like that and then like laughing at me when I would freak out about it because I didn't know the difference. And then just telling me that like I lied about having a brain tumor, I lied about having cancer, like I lied about this and that, and like I'm just lying about everything all the time. And it's like, I feel like they stole my life from me. And then this Lavloon girl who was trolling me just because she hated me, she's like taking aspects of my actual life and she retells these stories on live stream and tells them as if they are her own. And apparently, people go to different discords and just listen to other people all the time and do that on purpose to have content. So it's not unusual, and like when I complained about it, everyone was just kind of like, yeah, so
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
the guy who did a documentary about her took it off and he doesn't live stream anymore, and I'm wondering if he got harassment as well because he has a kid, so I could understand him just fucking taking off and not being a part of the internet anymore if he starts getting harassment like this because he was like the sole provider for his kid. He can't just fucking be putting up with all this shit while he's taking care of her. Like I talked to him about this
Mhm.
happening. He said Saxon was stalking him too. He stalked him for like over a year. And I was like, what the fuck? People kept telling me to be careful around him. No one said he's gonna stalk and harass you. Like they just said like you should be careful around Saxon because he hates women. That was all. And I was like, this guy doesn't hate women. He treats me so nicely. But like since this has happened, like people have reached out to me and been like, yeah, he's doing all this shit. He's saying a bunch of stuff, and I'm like, I don't, I can't deal with it. Like I literally can't do anything about it because if I call mods and I'm just like, he's talking about this or he's threatening me, they're like, where's the proof of it? And if I have it recorded, they're like, you're not allowed to record in here, and then I get banned. And he doesn't say stuff like that in text. I've shown people screenshots of him like abusing me before in text, and they're just like, "Well, why do you let him do it?" It's just an endless circle of like explaining shit to people where they're like, "Why?" I'm like, "Because he's fucking threatening me. He's threatening to show naked pictures to my stepson and call my stepson and tell him all this fucking dirty shit. Like, I don't know what the fuck to do about it." And basically, they just told me cut contact with everybody. Like everybody's explanation for me is basically like, just why do you deal with it? Like just ignore it. And I'm like, how the fuck do you ignore someone mentally and emotionally terrorizing the shit out of you?
Mhm.
And they had my address, so they're threatening to also come to my house. Like they sent me like pictures of my house. They just put like some weird AI like fucking filter through it so it had like flower boxes and shit on it. And the funny part was they showed that to me and I was like, "Oh, that's not my house." And they're just like, "No, that's your house. We just edited it so it wouldn't look like your house for your privacy." And I'm just like, "How is it for my privacy if you're doxing me?" It was very fucking stupid. But they had to literally explain to me that they were doxing me because I'm so fucking autistic that I didn't really get what was going on. I thought they were just like pranking me. So yeah, do you have any like questions or comments?
No. I just want to say that I appreciate you feeling comfortable telling me this.
I'm really nervous, honestly. Like it's hard because I have like a lot of black spots where I genuinely don't know what the fuck was going on. I was just really anxious all the time.
It's
Like they
alright.
called me constantly and I was so like sleep deprived from dealing with it all the fucking time. So,
It's okay.
and they kept threatening to call like wellness checks on me and shit, telling me I was a danger to myself. I'm like, dude, you're the danger. Like I'm fucking a wreck because of you. Like
But yeah, I mean, I'm not going I'm not an asshole, first and foremost. I'm never going to deny someone's trauma unless I have reason to. Um, but yeah, I mean, the shit that you went through, I'm truly sorry for.
thank you.
Mhm. Um, I also have an eating disorder, so I do know how that is, but, I think you look amazing.
Thanks.
Mhm.
It helps to hear that. You do too.
Thank you.
That's been the main criticism, and like I know that they do it for a reason, but it's like instead of talking about like what happened, people are just like talking about how they think I'm ugly. So it's like, you know,
Well,
it's like when you
I
discredit like a rape victim by being like, "Oh, she doesn't look good anyway. Who would do that?" Like that's basically exactly what happened, and it sucks because
right.
he told me that would be what happened if I talked about it. Like before I ever tried to act on like reporting it or talking to other people about it, he's like, yeah, like who's gonna believe you, and gave me this like fucking speech about how that doesn't work out for women. Like he'd show me clips of um like why women kill or like movies and shit and be like, yeah, this is what happens to women who do that, and just like showed me people basically failing to get help for this type of like abuse and shit. So like what was I gonna
Mhm.
do about it?
Well, that's changing. That's the best I can say about that. It's changing for the better. At one point in time that was the case, but it's not like that anymore. Um, you are safe,
Thank you.
and if it means anything, I did see what you look like, and I can't even fathom why they would call you ugly. You look amazing.
Thanks.
But I mean, yeah, if there's anything else you remember that you forgot to like mention or that you left out, or my DMs are always open if you want to vent.
Yeah, thank you. There's a lot that happened. So,
Mhm.
like, this went on for like a few months off and on, so I don't even know. I think we had like a straight up like month and a half where I just talked to him basically like all day, and I lost like all track and concept of time.
Mhm.
Alright, well, I'm gonna end the recording because I think we're done talking about this, but thanks for letting me
Mhm.
thanks for letting me talk about that. I
Of
might
course.
talk about it
Hell yeah.
more in the same sort of like format if it helps me remember stuff.